Welcome to another episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Our co-hosts, Sri Rajagopalan and Peter V.S. Bond, explore how brands and retailers engage with consumers online, in-store, and everywhere in between. And now, here are Sri and Peter.
Hello, folks, and welcome back to this episode of the CPG Guys. I'm, of course, Sri, one of your aforementioned CPG guys. My co-host, who's also the lover, especially this year when love is in the air. He's the lover of baseball, just like me, and the VP of Partner Strategy and Dev at Fetch Rewards, a mobile loyalty platform. Join me in welcoming the other CPG guy with love in the air, because pitchers and catchers report this year on February 14th, and I know he loves that. The man with the golden voice, Mr. Bond. How you doing today, sir?
I'm a lover, not a fighter, Sri. What can I say? The eternal optimist, hoping against hope that the Dodgers can do something this year, just like you'll be rooting on the Yankees. Wouldn't it just be grand to have a classic old Yankees-Dodgers World Series year? You know, lovers can dream, can't we, Sri?
Can't wait. And fortunately, that's still possible because it's two different leagues, and that's the way the game plays.
Well, neither team have lost any games yet, which is, of course, after opening day, both our teams may be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but who knows?
Here's the one thing Peter and I agree on, and it's the New York Giants, and they have a new general manager that was announced this morning. So hopefully, we'll see change, and it won't be another 4-13 season, and New York fans are just getting tired. All right, thank you, Peter. Before we get to our guest, let me remind our audience that all of our content can simply be found by visiting a browser and going to cpgguys.com. If you're already following this growing family of LinkedIn and being part of industry transformation, enter the word CPG Guys in LinkedIn in the search box, and when you get to our page, all you have to do is hit the blue plus button, which is follow. That way you'll get to see all of the content we produce. The best thing about it, there's no charge. Did you know we are in partnership with New? Of course, for those that may get to see this video, it actually says so on my t-shirt, Peter. The network of executive women in the middle of every Wednesday podcast episode is hidden an Easter egg with a message from New. Download, tune in, and listen. Check out newonline.org, that's CPG Guys, with a key message on joining the network. And Peter, that's called a partnership. When New gives us our own page on their website. How about that, man?
We have a microsite, Sri. You can't deny it at that point. There's no plausible deniability. We are a partner of New.
And that is the commitment Peter and I have to the diversity and equality journey as we continue this partnership. Today, we're actually going to take a deeper dive into that very topic, and we speak to Fahad Khawaja, who I met during his tenure as a marketing global strategy leader for the full J&J beauty portfolio. He was focused on new business models, e-commerce, personalization. I actually remember him building the digital beauty tech initiative, Neutrogena Skin 360, and I think we might have visited CES together and worked across other brands like Clean and Clear, Rogaine, OGX, and now a founder of a nonprofit called Hue, focused on diverse talent in the marketing space. Please join Peter and me in welcoming to the podcast, Fahad. Greetings, man. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Awesome. Did I get that right? Didn't we spend time together standing in a booth at CES many years ago?
Oh, yeah. CES was quite the adventure. Yeah. You and me and 200,000 of our closest friends. Yeah.
Before we get to the questions, Fahad, would you mind telling us where our audience can learn more about Hue, and then a very short brief overview of what Hue is?
Absolutely. So Hue can be followed at wearehue.org. So it's wearehue.org. And it's also on social platforms. We're very active on LinkedIn. You can just do a search for Hue and find us on LinkedIn, or follow us on Twitter at we_r_Hue, or Instagram at we.r.hue. And what Hue is, I can give you a quick background. So Hue is an organization that I founded a couple of years ago at the onset of the pandemic, actually, and it is a 501c3 nonprofit organization focused squarely on a vision of building equity and prosperity for all of our communities, essentially for the health and wealth of our communities. And the specific mission is focused on amplifying voices of color, increasing our visibility and paving a path to help us rise. And as you mentioned, the focus that we have right now is more around marketing, advertising, communications, and design disciplines.
Got it. If anyone wants to contribute and be part of this journey, Fahad, is there a way?
Yes. Folks can actually reach out to us on our social channels, or they can come to the website and they can actually make a donation directly. So because we're a 501c3 nonprofit, we can take donations that are fully tax deductible. And so again, if you go to the wearehu.org site, we have a donate link right on the homepage, on the top right menu, as well as just on the homepage directly. And we're always happy to take volunteer support and others who'd like to contribute. We have a contact form on our website as well. So we'd love to hear from folks one way or the other.
That is awesome. And of course, for our audience, we'll include hyperlinks to the site address you mentioned in our episode, digital liner notes, and so much more. So let's jump right in and unpack this episode focused on diversity and inclusion, especially with a marketing lens. I've, of course, known you since our J&J days, as I mentioned up front. I know you went to school at New York University, or better known as NYU and Stern, just like someone else on this podcast. I wonder who. Then you were at J&J, Grove, Adweek, and you even spent time in Pakistan as part of that. And you are a true, thorough, full-fledged marketer. Decompose this journey for our audience, how you went from NYU, Stern, Pakistan, and then we'll get to all the way into how you got to the other two companies you work for, including Adweek. Go ahead.
Sure. So it's been quite the journey, and happy to share that. Where I'll start is actually, like Peter, I'm an eternal optimist, and that really is very much a big part of what's defined my life and my career. And I'm essentially a connector who really focuses on community and connection and bringing together diverse groups and making sure that we can find ways to build bridges and actually connect in a way that leaves us all better off at the end, right? And ultimately, the way I've always looked at things from a career standpoint is, how do I actually bring people together and actually break down barriers so that we can ultimately, pave a path towards a greater and sort of better world for all of us. I focus a lot of my energy around purpose. So much of my career has been focused around building brands with purpose, all the way through to sort of where I am now. And as you mentioned, I started on the advertising side of things, worked at a couple different agencies in media planning and buying, and got to do a lot of really fun, interesting, exciting things in my early career, win some awards, get some sort of fun recognition, and then ultimately got my MBA. Right after the MBA, moved to Pakistan, spent a year in a startup environment there before getting recruited by J&J, Johnson & Johnson. And so spent nearly the next decade working with J&J across a number of their brands and business units at a local, regional, and global level. So honestly, J&J was very much sort of a marketing business school of its own. I had a great experience there. Can't really say much negative about it. It was a lot of just great people and great work, but ultimately wanted to sort of do what was next. I ended up moving to the West Coast and spending some time there. And while there, got recruited by an e-commerce tech startup and retailer, where I was brought in as their head of brand and innovation, really to build, again, purpose into their brands, drive a data-driven culture, and find a way forward around sort of diversity. Ultimately ended up leaving there, moving back to the East Coast, to New York, which is where I'm based now. Those who know me know I have a really deep love for New York. It's like a movie level love where it's probably annoying to the people around me, but it was great for me coming back. And, I wanted to focus my energy more around social impact. And so that is what ultimately led me to start Hue, which, as I mentioned, is an organization that's, very squarely focused on social impact, and happy to share more about that as well.
Fahad, welcome to the CPG Guys podcast. Shri, I've got serious follower envy. Do you know that Hue has almost 12,000 LinkedIn followers? Bravo. You've clearly created a community that people are excited to follow. And I think that's really exciting. So again, it's so great to have you join us today, and particularly on the topic that is at hand. I'd really love to know from you. Give us a deeper dive on what is Hue? What are you focused on, and what is the need that you saw that Hue could fill the void that the industry was really lacking?
Where Hue came from, I think in its most basic form, was my own experience, and so many of the experiences that friends, colleagues, coworkers had over the years, from my earliest days working in advertising all the way through to my last role at the startup that I had mentioned, I had seen really, really consistently that leaders at the C-suite level and beyond would say, we're looking for talent from all these diverse backgrounds, ethnically, racially, and so on. And we want to be able to promote them into leadership positions and bring them in where they really are diversifying our organization and helping to lead us forward. We don't know where to find them. And it was essentially perpetuating what I describe as a myth of a talent pipeline problem, which is to say that, if the talent is out there that we can't find, well, maybe actually they're not out there at all. Maybe they don't exist. And the reality is that we exist. And what I was hearing on an insight from another group of people, which was the talent, themselves, people of color across these different backgrounds, diverse backgrounds, was, well, one, we want to connect with those leaders who think we don't exist, right? Because we have the experience and expertise, we just don't have the access. And then second, we want to connect with one another. We want to build community. We want to have a support system. A lot of us may have employee resource groups at our company, but at the end of the day, those are for the company. What if we had a real resource at an industry level that allowed us to be able to, help each other get to that next stage in our careers and pave a path towards equity? And so he was built to be a bridge connecting those two disparate groups. And essentially what we do is we provide resources to people of color across different levels, across different industries, under sort of those broad umbrellas that I mentioned. And it's really been great. We've been able to see a lot of success. People are tangibly getting access to jobs. We have a member job board that companies are able to post on. We're able to take donations, as I mentioned, that help in a number of ways around events and programming that we're doing that allow people to connect with one another, as well as senior leaders, and a number of other things. But, all told, it's all in service of that mission of paving a path towards equity for these diverse groups that really should come together and help each other find that path towards the destination we're seeking, which is equity.
Clearly, Fahad, you obviously saw a challenge that's taking place in the industry. And so my next question really revolves around what's your personal involvement in Hue day to day, like as a leader leading it up front, and then what is your specific role? And then what are the other roles? Like when I was looking at the website and learning more, you can be a member, you can be a supporter. What's the difference?
Great question. So I am, president and CMO at this point. I am leading a very lean but very, very strong team of people because of the way that we're structured. We have sort of a really dynamic business model. We're able to take donations, but we're also able to do partnerships with different companies. And we function as a two-sided marketplace, essentially, where we have this great audience and community that's really, really powerful when they come together. But we're also able to work with companies to help showcase their values to this group that they're going after. And so the groups that we really have that are involved beyond sort of our core team are members who fall under sort of two buckets. One is your sort of that group of talent of color who want to connect with each other and help each other get to the next stage. The second bucket is supporters, where they may not be people of color, or they may be, but for the most part, they're not. They're folks who've said, we just want to help. We want to sign up on your site. We want to come to your events. We want to support you in any way that we can, whether it's connecting you to a hiring manager, doing mentorship and coaching, or actually financially supporting, right? So it's a mix of people who might be general managers, MDs, CEOs, marketing heads, recruiters, DEI folks, really, really mixed group, CSR, corporate social responsibility. So that's sort of the second group that's involved within our community day to day.
Unsafe, unheard, unvalued. It's the tagline associated with your new State of Inequity report. We're going to include a link to this report in the digital liner notes of this podcast. Fahad, what's the focus of this report? Why do we need this now more than ever, and how do you go about collecting data and making this available to people? I'd love to really understand the background behind this rather important research project that you've initiated.
Unsafe, unheard, unvalued, a state of inequity, or a state of inequity for short, was a report that we published last year focused on really bringing to light data and insights, answering questions that a lot of us had been asking, and many of us had anecdotal data around, but we didn't actually have the numbers behind. And, we wanted to find a way to actually answer those questions. Questions like, do people of color feel safe at work? Are they tangibly getting access to opportunities? are they being discriminated against in many ways, more severely than other groups? What's actually happening with folks who are in the marketing, communications, design, or advertising industries? Are they worse off than other functions? And so we asked a number of these different questions to start to get to the bottom of where really are the problems, how severe are they, and how concerned should we be? The reality is that there's been this sort of theme across diversity-related and HR-related and even industry-related circles that there's a business case for diversity, right? And the idea is that there's been, frankly, countless studies done that show that diversity in organizations drives innovation, it drives collaboration, it drives financial growth, but none of those have moved the needle in actually putting more folks into leadership positions to influence the budgets, to influence the change. As of this year, the latest numbers from 2021 are being reported that about $650 billion is spent annually on marketing and recruiting in the US alone. I don't know about you, but when I hear $650 billion, I think to myself, well, we should be able to get a few people in some leadership roles, right? If we're spending that kind of money. And so this report is meant to be an advocacy piece that helps showcase how dire the situation and is actually how clear and easy steps can help us move forward in a really tangible way.
Before we continue with this week's episode, brief message about New.
The Network of Executive Women is a growing community of over 14,000 professionals representing nearly 900 organizations across North America. Visit newonline.org/events to register. Next week, you can attend Pivot Points, Adjusting to a Hybrid Work Environment on Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022, from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock Pacific Time, where you will learn how to effectively partner virtually, manage your career in a virtual hybrid environment, and how to be an effective leader within such a virtual hybrid environment, sure to be our future.
For more information on how to get involved with New, visit newonline.org/CPG guys. Don't forget to tune in to the Advancing All Women podcast on Voice America, hosted by new President and CEO Sarah Alter. Listen every Friday at 7 a.m. Pacific on the Voice America Empowerment channel, with rebroadcasts weekly on the Voice America Influencers channel. And of course, download episodes after they air wherever you choose to get your podcasts.
And remember, folks, visit newonline.org/CPG guys to learn more about becoming a member of New.
And now back to our episode already in progress.
A reminder to our audience that we are speaking to Fahad Khawaja, the founder of Hue. $650 billion. That's the number that I heard. That's a lot of money, man, on recruiting. And yeah, there's no doubt in my mind, if that's the volume of money that's spent in recruiting, we should be able to find senior leadership and across the pipeline talent in marketing in our sleep. So keeping that as our backdrop, how have you actually scaled this? I remember having this conversation with you a year and a half ago at the beginning of the pandemic. You were about to start this. How did you actually get people to come in, participate, and then also people to take advantage of what you're doing?
It's been unexpected in the best ways. You're right. When we spoke, the conversation that you're referencing was early days of the pandemic, right? And things were shut down. There was so much uncertainty. Hue itself and our website ended up launching within weeks after George Floyd's death. And, at a moment when not only was there a pandemic, but there was a massive social justice and impact sort of movement happening, right? And without question, both of those elements brought people to us. It all started with me sort of starting to publicize it on LinkedIn to my own network, but it grew really, really quickly. I mean, within our first few days of going live, my phone was blowing up. I was getting messages on apps, emails, texts. It was incredible to see how much support there was behind this and how many people related to the issues that we were bringing up, but also genuinely wanted to help. And, I think that's been the biggest piece, that people realize this is a real problem. We're not seeing anyone else out there really addressing it in this way. Maybe we can actually help. And I think that for me was the biggest draw. And, since then, I think it's just been about people who were drawn to the mission and the purpose of what we're trying to do and coming together and actually build a community. But it's really been built from the ground up. And I'd say the community itself, in addition to the folks who were sort of behind the scenes with Hue, I've never seen anything like it. It's such an engaged group of people. They're so open. They're so warm. And I'm not exaggerating when I say at least a couple of times a week, I will get a message from someone completely unsolicited, either on LinkedIn or within our community digital hub, wherever it might be, or even an email that just says, hey, I've been able to connect with X number of people across the community. They're so experienced. They've done X, Y, Z. They're all these amazing professionals, but they're so down to earth and they're so willing to help. And they're so open to making sure that progress is what we all see. And so for me, it's really just been, I think, that purpose that drew us all together and continues to drive us forward.
That's a wonderful sentiment, Fahad. That's terrific. And thank you for sharing that with us. Obviously, it's not going to be successful unless the employers that are looking to hire people are actively engaged in this mission. So can you boil down for us what's the key message for employers, and how does that message also engage the associates of those companies? Because ultimately they're the people that are activating the hiring activities. How does this all manifest itself into action? What's the message that you are delivering to them?
I'd say there's a couple things. So the first is, when it comes to employers overall, one of the key messages is make change now and make it procedural, structural, and systemic. So put in place policies that ensure you're bringing in diverse pipelines. Make sure that your slates in interviews always have more candidates from underrepresented, marginalized, historically excluded backgrounds, and put in place a number of other policies that are very common sense policies that can actually start to create tangible change. So that's sort of one key message. The second, I would say, which is more for other associates across the company as well as leaders, is to really make sure that you are taking ownership for some of these changes. Ultimately, yes, it's an HR department's job. Yes, it's a CEO's job. Yes, it's a diversity or equity inclusion head's job. But really, every person within the organization influences the culture, and they influence the way that you can make sure that all of these decisions are being made, right? At the end of the day, people are hiring all the time, they're firing all the time, they're developing people, they're not developing people. Each person within a company has a role to play. And so if you see something that isn't working or could be better, take a step forward. Reach out to Hugh, reach out to us. If you need more support from us to help your company find ways to work with us or to donate to us or to support us, if you have a matching program at your company and you want to, raise money for Hugh and have your company match, talk about things like that. Reach out to us. We're happy to help provide resources to you. But again, ultimately, take responsibility, take action rather than just focus on words.
So I want to come back to seeking your advice now for the industry in general, right? We talked a lot about what's going on in the industry and the fact that there's $650 billion floating in recruiting and why that doesn't bridge the gap to get diverse candidates. What's your big advice for the CPG industry, both on the brand side and the retail side, on diversity and inclusion? Earlier you said a call to action such as act now, but what's the big advice you want to give people to look within? And what's your prediction? Is change going to prevail?
I'd say my main advice at the industry level is don't be afraid to take steps forwards if you're not 100% sure where you're going. What I've found in talking to a lot of leaders at different companies is that they have a hesitance to try something new, work with a different organization, go in a different direction because they're really afraid that maybe they'll get ripped apart on social media, or their employees will not be 100% on board with what they're doing, or because they don't have a 100% perfect plan with a bow tied on it very nicely, that they really can't move. And so as a result, they end up being paralyzed. But the reality is that by not doing anything at all, you're going to end up in a worse position, right? It's that idea that you should really focus on progress over perfection. And so that's sort of the overarching advice that I would give. In terms of the outlook, again, I'm an eternal optimist, and I wouldn't be doing any of this if I didn't believe that there was an opportunity to actually make change. And so I believe that there can be change. In my sort of dream situation, our organization doesn't even exist anymore because we've so significantly addressed the changes. I don't see that happening super soon, but even with the work that we've done since we launched a couple of years ago, we've seen some real tangible change with the partners that we're working with the community that we're already serving. For us this year, the goal really is to grow that community, grow the impact that we're making for them. And we can only do that with the support of external partners, external companies, individuals, different organizations. And so that's really where we want to focus our energy.
Your mission is so noble. I applaud you for what you've created. My last question for you today centers around the fact, Shri and I have talked about this quite a lot, that the pandemic has obviously changed human behavior. We hope not for the good in this respect, but particularly with respect to the comity, not comedy, but comedy, or the considerate interactions between different ethnic, gender, and marginalized communities. I think it's pretty hard to deny that. In the role you play, how are you and your organization responding to this and preparing for this transformation that's occurring?
We're very much at the center of it. When Hugh began, the entire ethos to it was bringing together people from these different backgrounds, right? And it was on this idea that it's not just Black communities, it's not just Hispanic or Latinx communities, it's not just Asian, right? It's not just whatever it might be. It's really the idea that if we want to make some noise to create some change quickly, the more voices we have in the room that come together, the more noise we're going to make. And the more noise we make, the more quickly we'll make change. So that's really the idea behind it. And I think as you talk about transformation, the more of us that we have moving towards that destination together, arm in arm, the more effective we'll be, the more long lasting the change will be, and the quicker it'll come. So I see us very much at the center of it.
So folks, you heard it from the man himself. The time to act is now. Lose fear, make change happen, be part of industry transformation. That's what Peter and I say in the journey we are on as well, Fahad, with the CPG guys. It's like, how do we propel all of us together, forward together in the industry of delivering quality products at value for the consumer? It's no different on the diversity journey. Let's look, feel, touch so that we can truly represent the communities we've all chosen to do business in at the end of the day. Thoughts, Peter?
Shri, you know this is a major cause for both of us. And as I just mentioned, I can't think of anything more noble right now that's just more needed. And we're trying to, through our conversations, affect change in the industry in a number of different ways. This is a very important one, and I could not be happier that we had a chance to discuss this today.
Thank you, Peter. Let me remind our audience that you can find all our content simply go into a browser and go into cpgguys.com. And also a reminder, today's episode was all about equality, diversity, and inclusion. We are partners to the Network of Executive Women, NEW. You can join that organization simply by going to newonline.org, that's CPG Guys, and find out the mission and become a member and make change happen today. Fahad, sincere thank you, not just for joining us on the podcast, but for a couple of years ago in the middle of the pandemic, leaving what you then loved to do most, which is marketing on a brand, to actually start this worthy cause. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the support and for having me. I really appreciate it.
Mr. Bond, pleasure doing this week over week with you, sir.
Hey, I love this. I'm glad we're able to bring this to our community and talk about a very important issue that we should all be invested in addressing.
That's a wrap for this episode. We will see you soon on another episode of the CPG Guys.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.